Okay, welcome to our Active Directory domain project where we're going to be creating 3 domains in a single Active Directory forest. A little more complicated and involved than doing a single domain setup. But here's a little quick visual guide to some of the icons we're going to be looking at in our full diagram. On the top left, you have the VM server, where there's going to be 4 of them running server 22. And then you have to the right there the clients. We're just going to create 3 of them. In the diagram, you'll see a bunch of them just to help you visualize an actual domain environment. But I only have limited resources, so I can't create 30 VM clients. We're just going to create 3 of them in actuality. And they're going to be running Windows 10 Enterprise. And then on the bottom left there, you can see those are the private virtual switches. There's going to be 3 of them, and because there are 3 subnetworks. Each domain in our forest is a subnet of 172.16. And then you have your virtual NIC thingamajigger there, the orange icon. That's just the virtual NIC. There's going to be 6 of them on the routers, 3 on the forest router, and then 1 on each domain controller. And then there's going to be 3 on the 1 on each virtual machine client that we create. So hopefully that'll help you understand the next diagram a little bit better. In which case, here it is. This is the full kind of overview granddaddy of them all diagrams. This is going to help explain our project here. As you can see, we have 3 domains. At the top is the forest router. We're basically using a Windows server and just making it a router. So you can just visualize an actual router icon there as well, and it'd be the same, or a layer 3 switch, because we have our 3 private virtual switches underneath, each connected to their respective domains. NFL.com domain is the forest root domain. It is going to be the first domain that we create, and its network ID is 172.16.0.0. The virtual NIC on the forest router, that is the default gateway for NFL.com, is 172.16.0.1. And as you can see, there are also, so you have the forest router at the top. That's not a domain controller. There are 3 domain controllers, each one in a network. So an NFL.com has the NFL DC domain controller. AFCWest.com has AFC West DC. And NFCNorth.com has NFC North DC. Each one is going to be installed with Active Directory domain services and DNS. They will be the DNS servers. However, DHCP routing will come from the forest router. All routing functionality will come from the forest router, which has, if you notice, has 3 virtual NICs, whereas the domain controllers only have 1 virtual NIC. And then, as you can see, there are client PCs associated with each domain. In the NFL.com domain, they've got their little NFL PC 1 through 6, and the AFCWest.com. They're broken up into their respective teams. And so AFC West is composed of 4 teams, NFC North is composed of 4 teams, and each team will have its own organizational unit with computers that go with it. So you have 3 Chiefs, 3 Broncos, 3 Raiders, 3 Chargers PCs in that domain. And then in NFC North, you have 3 Lions, 3 Packers, 3 Bears, and 3 Vikings PCs associated with their organizational units. So yeah, get to know this diagram. Print it out. If you have 2 computers, just put this on 1 computer, and then as you're going through this lab project, whatever you want to call it, refer to it, because it will help you. It will help make sense of what we're doing here. Because as we're configuring stuff in Hyper-V and the actual virtual machines, it can get confusing. You're dealing with a lot of numbers, 172.16.whatever. But if you look at this diagram, it'll all make sense, because you see 172.16.0.1 is connected to NFL switch, which is connected to 172.16.0.2, which is the virtual NIC on the domain controller. And you'll see it can get confusing, but if you just refer to this diagram, hopefully it'll help you make sense of it. And here's just kind of a logical domain forest view of what we're doing as well. You have NFL.com at the top, the forest root domain, which contains the enterprise administrator at NFL.com. Now this guy, he can do whatever he wants in the domain. He can go to afcwest.com, nfcnorth.com. He can create OUs, create users, delete users, do whatever he wants because he's the enterprise admin. But when we add the afcwest.com and nfcnorth.com domains, they have to get permission from administrator at nfl.com. And the administrator at AFC West and nfcnorth.com, they'll get created when you create the domains, but you have to use the credentials of administrator at nfl.com. It's important that you kind of understand the differences between, because they're all called administrator, right? The name of the account is administrator, but they're not all created equally. The first domain has administrator at nfl.com is the enterprise admin. The other two, they're subordinate, right? They're just domain admins. So afcwest.com admin cannot create users, delete users, and all that stuff in NFC North or NFL.com. I just think it's important that we understand those distinctions as we're dealing with all these administrator accounts. Anyway, let's do a quick run through of what we're going to be doing here. To start, we're going to create 7 virtual machines. 4 will be installed with Windows Server 2022, and 3, our clients, will be installed with Windows 10 Enterprise. So I just got my ISOs from the Windows Evaluation Center. It's pretty easy. Just go to their website, download the ISOs. So in Hyper-V, you're going to click on New Virtual Machine. And then you're going to kind of select how much RAM you want to use, how much CPU, stuff like that. And then you're going to make sure you click Install an operating system from a bootable CD, DVD-ROM, and image file.iso. You're going to browse to your wherever you keep your ISOs, right? And then select either Server 2022 or Windows 10 Enterprise. And then, yeah, go from there and finish creating the VMs. And then you're going to create 3 private switches, one for each domain subnetwork. We're doing a private kind of domain here where we're not connecting to the World Wide Web like I did in the first experiment. I just thought I'd keep it as simple as I could as we're creating 3 separate domains. It kind of complicates things. Anyway, you just make sure you name them NFL switch, AFC West switch, and NFC North switch. Then we're going to add 2 more virtual NICs to the forest router and connect them to their correct private virtual switches. So you just make sure you select forest router and then click settings, go to add hardware, network adapter, add, and then make sure to connect it to its respective switch. Remember, there are 3 of them, so just 3 network adapters connected to 3 virtual switches. It's that simple. And then on the other domain controllers, they only have a single VNIC, so you just connect them to their correct virtual switches as well. And then once we install everything, which takes a while, it's kind of the boring part. You just kind of got to get through all the installation processes. Then we're going to go into Hyper-V, and then on Forest Router, we need to check out the MAC addresses. So we're going to click on the networking tab there. And then you just match up the MAC address with each network adapter, see which switch it's connected to. And then that way we can go to Forest Router, go to the ncpa.cpl control panel applet, click on status for the VNIC details, and it'll show you there. The physical address will match perfectly with the MAC address as listed in Hyper-V. So you know what to call the NIC and what to assign the IP addresses. So then you just, to make it simpler, you just rename the VNICs according to which domain subnetwork they connect to. NFL NIC, AFC West NIC, NFC North NIC. They'll connect to their respective switches. Hopefully that's not too complicated. And then you're going to assign static IP addresses to all the virtual NICs. the 3 on the forest router, and the 3 domain controllers. And each domain controller will line up with the virtual NIC on the forest router. So 172.16.0.1 will be the default gateway for NFL DC. 172.16.1.1 will be the default gateway for AFC West DC. 172.16.2.1 will be the default gateway for NFC North DC. You see how they kind of match up with each other because they're connected to the same network, right? And then just make sure to set the preferred DNS server in AFC West DC and NFC North DC to the IP address of NFL DC. It's very important that you do this. You will not be able to create those two subordinate domains if you do not specify the preferred DNS address as 172.16.0.2. Critical here. You won't be able to connect. Okay, then we're going to install DHCP and remote access server roles and make sure to check routing in the role services because remember, forest router is a router. We're just making it a router. It's not a domain controller like the other 3. It's not as cool, but it runs the show because it's the default gateways for those networks. And then in the NFL DC, you're going to install Active Directory Domain Services from the Add Roles and Features wizard and Server Manager. We're going to promote it to a domain controller. We're going to say add a new forest. And then for the root domain name, NFL.com. And then in the other 2 domain controllers, after that installs, it takes a while. We're going to have to wait. Here we add a new domain to an existing forest. And you can see it's a tree domain. And you say the forest name, NFL.com, right? And then the new domain name, AFCWest.com and NFCNorth.com. And make sure to use the administrator at NFL.com credentials. So otherwise, you won't be able to do it. And then we're going to go back to Forest Router and we're going to go to Tools and Server Manager, click Routing and Remote Access. And then just right-click Forest Router, configure and enable routing and remote access. Then in the wizard, just select secure connection between 2 private networks. Click Next and finish that stuff. And then you're going to go down to IPv4, right-click Static Route, say New Static Route. And then you have to specify the interface. So in this case, NFL NIC. Destination, it's going to point towards the AFCWest.com domain 172.16.1.0, right? Destination is the network ID. And then network mask /24, of course. And then we specify the default gateway, which is 172.16.1.1. And there's going to be 6 static routes in total because there are 3 virtual NICs, but each one has to communicate in 2 directions, 1 to each other virtual NIC. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So that's what it should look like when you're done. However, it is not enough just to set up static routes. You need to enable IP routing in the registry editor as well. So go into regedit, type it into the run dialog box. Go to HKey local machine, system, current control set, services, TCP/IP, all the way down in parameters. There's an IP enable router subkey. Double click that, set it to 1. That will enable it. And then we're going to create 3 scopes in DHCP, 1 for each domain network, subnetwork, and so that the client VMs can get their IP addresses dynamically instead of statically. And then in the DNS snap-in, we're going to create conditional forwarders so that each domain controller can forward DNS queries to the other 2 domains. So if someone in AFCWest.com wants to talk to NFCNorth.com, the NFCNorth.com DNS server can just forward it to NFCNorth.com, which is 172.16.2.2. Hopefully that makes sense. Finally, just add each client VM to their respective domains. For instance, NFL PC1, you go to System Properties, click Change, and then change the computer name to NFL PC1. And then make sure to say member of domain, and then NFL.com in this case. and then it'll say, and then you'll use the credentials of the administrator, and then it'll say welcome to the domain, and that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to open Hyper-V. We're going to say new virtual machine. We're going to name forest router to start. Start with the forest router. I'm going to do 2 gigabytes of RAM. I'm going to connect it to start. I'm going to have to connect it to the default switch, because running this experiment, I realized that the evaluation ISOs need to connect to the internet to verify, and in order to be able to basically create a domain and do group policy and all that. So it complicated things, and it caused me to make a mistake at a later point, but I had to do it in order to verify my evaluation installations of Windows. Kind of a pain in the butt, but anyway, we're just creating each VM, connecting to the default switch, which comes built into Hyper-V, which allows you to connect to the internet, which is nice. Just keep on going down the line. NFC North DC. I'm doing 2 gigabytes of RAM. If you have more to give, I mean, that's obviously if you have 64 gigabytes of RAM in your host, give it 8 gigabytes, whatever. I only have a 16 gigabyte PC running Windows 11 Pro with Hyper-V, so I'm limited on my resources. So I'm doing 2 gigabytes of RAM, 20 gigabytes of hard disk space. And again, just browse to wherever you keep your ISOs. And remember, the clients get Windows 10 Enterprise, the servers and the domain controllers get server 22 or whatever server you're using. You could do server 2025, and this would work too, obviously. Windows 11 Enterprise. But Windows 10 and server 22 require less gigabytes of stuff, so that's why I'm using 10 and 22. Almost done with the initial create wizard. Now I'm just gonna speed through this, but you just install the operating system. So I'm doing the graphical user interface version, so you just make sure to select that. And I'm using all the hotkeys because I've done this so many times, but just pause the video and go through each one if you have to slowly, and just make sure you get it installed. And it can take a while. I just cut forward there. So now we're just assigning the password for the administrator account, which is a local administrator account at the moment, but once we promote the domain controllers to domain controllers, they will become the enterprise and domain admin accounts. Here I'm just doing some initial setup. Because I'm not using integration service, that reminds me, make sure integration services or enhanced session policy, whatever it's called, is not selected in Hyper-V. However, I find that I like a full screen at 1920 by 1080 in my case, so I'm just changing that. And then I'm going to create specific backgrounds for each VM so that I can keep track, because we're dealing with 7 VMs here. And it can get confusing when you've got 7 VMs with all these different IP addresses, subnet, default gateways, DNS. I'm just trying to keep things orderly. So I'm just going to put backgrounds on all of these. And I'm going to show the first one here. I'm doing forest router, and then I won't show the other ones, and you can just do those at your convenience. Just pause the video and finish those. So I did all of that. Now I am going to install the client VMs. I just did the servers. And again, just pause the video and do it as slowly as you need to. Just get them installed. Again, this takes time depending on your computer. Go through all that out-of-the-box experience stuff. Create your first user account. Just make sure to say domain join, and then just create local accounts. Lots of tedious setting up here. I'm just turning off all of that stuff. There you can see my backgrounds. They tell you which virtual machine you're on. And then I even have host on, so that's my host machine there in the background in the brown. And that's just a HP Pavilion laptop, the actual physical machine running all of these virtual machines. So now we're going to create our switches, NFL switch. These are private switches, AFC West switch. And NFC North switch, the 3 private switches. Again, we're not connected to the World Wide Web. I took off the default switch. I disconnected to the default switch, so now there's no internet connectivity. I just did that for initial setup. Now we're just in our private own little forest network that we're creating. Just make sure to connect the VNICs to their proper switch. Now we're going to, just connect that. NFC North DC, obviously it's going to get connected to the NFC North switch. Try to make it as simple as possible here. So as you can see in the forest router, you just check the MAC addresses. So now when we go to ncpa.cpl, we can go to status, details, and just check the MAC address. That one was ED, which is the NFL switch, right? It's connected to the NFL switch, so we just say NFL NIC. Then that one is F4, which was the AFC West. Again, you're just matching them up to the MAC addresses in Hyper-V. Now we're going to go to Internet Protocol Properties and assign static IP addresses, in this case 172.16.0.1, subnet mask /24. No default gateway because it is the default gateway for the network. And then preferred DNS server points to the DC in that network. And then here 172.16.1.1 for AFC West /24 subnet mask, no default gateway 172.16.1.2 because that's going to be the DNS server. And then just finish up with NFC North, static IP 172.16.2.1/24, preferred DNS 172.16.2.2 because that's the DNS server, the domain controller in that subnetwork. Now we're going to go to power config. I just did this. When your computers turn off and everything, it's kind of hard to do everything, so you just turn that off. And then I'm just enabling all of the firewalls because we're in a private network. It doesn't really matter, and I want to be able to ping stuff. And I just find that enabling all of these rules, I don't know. You don't have to do this, maybe, but I did it. I did it for each server. Just change the computer name and system properties. Although it's not as important with Forest Router because it's not a domain controller. Now we're going to go to NFL DC and do the same thing. NCPA, go to Properties, IPv4, assign the static IP address of 172.16.0.2 /24 subnet mask. Default gateway 172.16.0.1, which is the Forest Router NIC for that network. As you can see, it connects immediately. Then we're going to go to power config again, just so it never turns off. So we can just bounce around from each VM without having to re-sign in every 5 minutes. Go to Windows Firewall, wf.msc. Just enable all the firewall rules. Again, maybe you don't have to, but sometimes you can't ping stuff and verify internet connectivity and stuff like that. So I'm just going to enable everything all at once. Just click on one, scroll to the bottom, hold the shift key and click on the last item and click enable all. That works. Now we're going to change the name of this computer from that gobbledygook to NFL DC. So much simpler that way. Now we're going to go to AFC West and do the same thing. Static IP address 172.16.1.2, same subnet mask, default gateway 1.1, and then DNS server 1602. Remember to point it towards the NFL.com DNS server because that's going to allow us to create our domain. Again, just going to go to power config, say never turn off display, never sign out. It's annoying to have to sign in every 5 minutes. Yep. This is the fun part, just doing all this tedious stuff. Change the name, AFC West DC. Okay. You need to change the name before you promote to a domain controller. It's important that you do that. I'm going to go to NFC North. And looks like I made a little mistake here, so I got to go back to Hyper-V and delete one of those virtual NICs. Yeah, the one attached to the default switch is still there, so I just removed it. And you can do that while the VM's running. It's not a big deal. So now I'm going to assign static IP address for the NFC North NIC 172.16.2.2, subnet mask as before, default gateway 2.1 on the forest router. For DNS, again, point towards NFL DC. That's very important. You will not be able to connect, you'll not be able to validate joining the domain, the forest, the NFL.com forest, if you do not specify the correct DNS IP address in that scenario. Again, go to Windows Firewall, enable all those rules. It's like overwhelmed as I do everything at once, but that's okay. Windows Media Player, probably don't need to enable that, but whatever. I found it was just quicker to enable everything. Don't do that on a real network connected to the internet, but here it's fine because we're not connected to the internet. Change the name, NFC North DC. Now we're going to go to Forest Router and start installing some server roles and role services and features. So we're on Forest Router. I'm going to go to Server Manager. It starts automatically, but add roles and features. That's what we want. That's what we're here for. Just click next a few times. We're going to select DHCP server. Click add features, sure. And remote access. Now we're not actually going to be using remote access, but there's a server role that we are concerned about, and that is routing. So we need to click routing. It will automatically click direct access and VPN as well. We won't use that, and then just install that. Now we're going to go to the other domain controllers and start installing Active Directory domain services. Type in, we're still a local administrator account yet because we haven't installed Active Directory. You'll see that login will change as we get Active Directory installed. Again, go to Server Manager, add roles and features, or you can just type turn Windows features on or off in the search dialog box. It'll point you to the same thing. Just click Active Directory Domain Services and add features. You can also select a DNS server as well, but it installs it anyway, but you can also check that box as well. And then we're just going to go to the other two DCs and also start the installation of Active Directory Domain Services. However, we will have to wait until NFL.com is up and running until we add those domains. Same thing, just same thing we did before. Install it. I'm going to go to NFC North DEC. Wait for Server Manager to load on my 2 GB RAM VM, which is kind of slow. Active Directory Domain Services, yes, install. Boom, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're just going to quickly complete DHCP configuration. Now we're going to go to Tools and click Routing and Remote Access, because that's what we're concerned about, routing. We're going to right-click Forest Router in the box, click Configure, Next, select Secure Connection Between 2 Networks. That's what I went with, and it seemed to work just fine. I'm going to say no for that. I'm not really sure what that is. Finish. I get that pop-up half the time. Half the time I don't. I never know why, and it always just works, so that pop-up is just meant to scare you, but it doesn't do anything. All right, it's finishing initialization. Please wait while the remote access management starts. Now we are going to expand Forest Router. Notice that has a green little icon instead of a red one. IPv4, we're going to start creating static routes. Actually, we're gonna go back and install, promote the NFL DC to a domain controller first, just to keep things moving, because this takes a while. So we'll do that as this is installing. We're going to add a new forest, right? Because we have to create the first domain in the forest. We have to create a forest. NFL.com is going to be the forest root domain. Very important. It's the big daddy of them all. And we're going to just type in whatever password you can think of. Doesn't matter in this situation. Just hit next. It's going to give you your NetBIOS domain name, which will say NFL, just for backwards compatibility stuff. Doesn't really matter. See, it just says NFL. Because you can log on to a domain in the NetBIOS way or the modern way, which we'll see in a minute. Just accept the defaults there. And this takes a while. It's going to, just kind of have to be patient. All prerequisites passed successfully. Click install. Now we're going to go back and configure some static routes while that is installing, because it takes a while. So just right click anywhere, new static route, and you're going to specify the interface. In this case, we'll start with NFL NIC. We're going to point it towards the destination, which is the network ID of AFC West 172.16.1.0, network mask /24, of course. Gateway 172.16.1.1, because that's the default gateway for that network. We need to create another one for the NFL NIC interface to point towards the NFC North.com network. So again, specify NFL NIC destination 172.16.2.0 for the network ID. Network mask /24. Gateway 172.16.2.1. Now we're going to go to AFC West, point that towards NFL.com 172.16.0.0 for the network ID, network mask of /24, gateway 172.16.0.1, of course. And then again, we have to point it towards the NFC North 172.16.2.0 is the destination network ID. 255.255.255.0, like all of them. 172.16.2.1. There, just two more. Now we're going to specify the NFC North NIC and point it to the other two virtual NICs. 172.16.0.0 for the NFL.com network. 255.255.255.0. 172.16.0.1. Last one. NFC North NIC for the interface, destination 172.16.1.0 for AFC West /24 subnet mask gateway 172.16.1.1. There, we have all of our static routes. But again, remember, as I said before, that's not enough. As I discovered, you have to go to registry editor. At least this is how I came up. This is the solution that I came up with. Go to local machine, HK local machine, system, current control set, services, TCP/IP parameters, and then make sure IP enable router is set to 1. I could not get my little experiment to work until I did this. This was the missing key. And I kind of went around in circles for a while. So important that you do that. It's not enough just to do the static routes. You got to enable that somehow. That's just the way I came up with it, to go to the registry editor. Maybe there's another way, but maybe a simpler way, but that's what I ended up doing. As you can see now, it says NFL/administrator. However, you can just do the more modern way and just say administrator at, and then the domain name, which is NFL.com. Both are synonymous, interchangeable, if you will, and should log you on to your domain. As you can see, I'm on NFLDC, and it's been promoted to a domain controller. I've got Active Directory installed. So if we go, just type users into the search box. Active Directory users and computers, where we create all our users and computers and stuff. Expand NFL.com. You can check out your built-in security groups, the domain local security groups. No computers yet. Domain controllers, of course, NFLDC gets automatically put into that OU. You've got all your built-in security groups and individual users as well. As you can see, enterprise admins and domain admins are included in the forest root domain. However, that's not the case with the other two domains, as we will see. I will prove it to you. Now we go to DNS Manager just to verify it's up and running. You can see it's got the host records. Now as we add clients to our network, those host records will be added in there. So there's just 172.16.0.2. That's literally the only one in there at the moment. But there will be more as you add clients to your network. Now we're going to promote the other two domain controllers and add their domains to the existing forest that we just created, NFL.com. So we're going to say, I'm going to do tree domains instead of child domains. That's just what I went with in this experiment. Forest name, of course, NFL.com, but the new domain that we're creating, AFCWest.com, and you need to specify credentials for the root domain, which is administrator@NFL.com. Enter the password, and it should work. There we go. Took a while. Enter a password. Get through all of this stuff. Select the default path, sure. Prerequisites passed successfully. That's what I like to see. Now we're going to promote the NFC North DC to our domain controller. Add a new domain to an existing forest. Again, tree domain. Forest name is NFL.com. NFCNorth.com is the new domain. Again, specify administrator@NFL.com. Because he's the only one who can let you in. I mean, unless you create another administrator account with who's a member of the enterprise admins group and the schema admins. I actually tried to do that once. I tried to rename the administrator account, disable it, and create my own, and Active Directory did not like that, and I was not able to join the domains. So I had to just use the regular administrator account name. Almost there. You can read that if you want to. And install. Look at all those VMs down there. Crazy. It's overwhelming. administrator at afcwest.com should get us into the AFC West domain, and it does. Just like that. We are up and running. Go to users and computers, we can see our built-ins. But if we go to users, you notice how enterprise admins is not a group in this domain because it's not a forest root domain. So we can add users in this domain because we are domain admins in afcwest.com. We have no problem doing that. But if we went to NFL.com, we would not be able to. You can see there's no option to create new users. It's all grayed out up there because I'm not an enterprise admin. I can only add stuff and delete stuff in afcwest.com. Again, oh, there's NFC North. It's ready to go. It's already in the list. Check DNS real quick. Got our forward lookup zone. Again, just that host records. Nothing much going on at the moment. We don't have any clients yet, really. So now we're in NFL DC. Sorry, we're going to NFC North DC. We're going to log in as administrator there to verify that we're in the domain, and we are. Go to users and computers again just to see what we got. Same thing as AFC West. It does not have the enterprise admins groups. Now we're going to create DHCP scopes for our client machines so they get dynamic addresses. So we're going to call this one NFL, start IP address 172.16.0.1, end 0254, subnet mask /24. We're going to exclude the .1 and .2 IP addresses because those are our DNS and default gateways. 172.16.0.1 for the default gateway. And then for DNS, I just removed the other two because I'm going to set up conditional forwarders, but 0.2 for the DNS. Don't worry about wins. Finish that. Create another scope, right-click IPv4, call this one AFC West, 172.16.1.1 to 172.16.1.254/24. Start IP address, exclusions .1 to .2, just like the other one. Say yes, configure now. Set the default gateway to 1.1, and then just do 1.2 for the DNS. Last one for the NFC North, 172.16.2.1 to 2.254/24. Exclude .1 and .2 for DNS and default gateway because those are static. Again, I'm just going to remove, I don't know if it really matters. I could have just kept those in there maybe and not done conditional forwarders, but I decided to do it this way. And it worked, so those are our scopes. They look like they're working so far. Now we're going to go to AFC West DC. I'm going to do some pinging here. So I can ping NFL.com. But I probably won't be able to ping NFCNorth.com because I haven't set up conditional forwarders yet. If I go to NFL DC, I can't even ping AFC West or NFC North. So I'm going to set up conditional forwarders, go to DNS Manager, just type the domain name, afcwest.com, and then its DNS server address, which is 172.16.1.2, and fcnorth.com 2.2. And now you can forward DNS queries to those DNS servers. Now we can do it. Works fine. Just like that. That's how easy that is. And again, just go to AFC West. Now we only have to do one forwarder on this one because when we set up the domain, or when we set up its IP configuration, we already specified that its DNS preferred server was 172.16.0.2, which is NFL.com. So we just need to do a conditional forwarder for nfcnorth.com. As you can see there, Active Directory put 127001 for the preferred, but the alternate was the one that we put for the preferred initially. So hopefully that made sense. Maybe it confused you, but so now we're in NFC North DC and we're just creating a conditional forwarder for AFC West. So if someone in nfcnorth.com wanted to talk to someone in afcwest.com, the DNS server in NFC North could just query that to the DNS server in AFC West. So everyone can talk to each other. This is good. Our domain is up and running. Everything's connected. The forest router is doing its job. We set up all those static routes. We enabled IP routing to just convert it into basically just a router. And that's what it's doing. It's allowing AFC West to talk to NFL.com, NFCNorth.com. So now we're going to add clients to the domain. In NFL PC1, go to sysdm.cpl, change computer name to NFL PC1. Member of NFL.com domain. So here, I made a mistake somewhere. So now we gotta just, I always make a mistake somewhere. I never do this, as many times as I do this, I always screw up somewhere. So now we just gotta figure it out. NFL.com. So yeah, I forgot to detach it from the default switch. I knew that would cause me issues. I knew I would forget something along those lines. Getting there. I figured it out at some point, I promise. I don't remember what I was thinking here, but I was just trying to look at stuff and see where I made a mistake. Which the mistake was in Hyper-V itself, because it was still attached to the default switch, which gave it a different DNS server. As you can see, that random 172.29.16.1. So we just need to go into settings and change the network adapter from default switch to NFL switch, right? And then remove that, whatever. So now it should work. Change NFL PC1 domain NFL.com. And there we go. We can just enter our credentials, administrator at NFL.com. And welcome to the NFL.com domain. So there. And then for the other two, let's just go to, wait. I'm just going to create a temp user here in the NFL.com domain. And then on NFL PC1, login as temp user. Temp user, not just take off the 1, temp user. I don't know why I put a 1 there, but, and then bypass all that. And then we're in the domain. And you notice the background changed to the default because we're a new user with a new user profile. Again, we need to, for the other two client VMs, I forgot to attach the network adapter to the correct switch. I left it on the default switch. I was trying to do this whole video without making a mistake, but that never happens. I always do something wrong. I can do this 100 times and I will make a mistake like this. Okay. Now we're going to log on to AFC West DC and Chiefs PC1 because Chiefs is a member of the AFC West domain. Go to sysdm.cpo, change the name to Chiefs PC1, make it a member of afcwest.com domain. Now for credentials, you can do administrator at afcwest.com or nfl.com, but not nfcnorth.com. That worked. So that computer's joined to the afcwest.com domain. Great. Test users allowed to sign in. Just gonna ping NFC northdc.nfcnorth.com, nfldc.nfl.com. Sorry, yeah, that worked. So that's good. So now we just need to add the Lions PC to the nfcnorth.com domain. So we need to start those two computers. I wish I could just have everything running all at once, but I only have so much RAM. I can only run about 4 at a time. What I'm getting at is I need to get a computer with like 64 gigabytes of RAM. That would be awesome. And like 16 logical processors or something. Because this is a 4-core processor with 8 logical processors, meaning hyperthreading. But it'd be cool to have like 16 or something. Again, just enter the credentials, same things as we did before. Now this PC is joined to the domain, and if I had all my computers up, I could communicate all the way from Lions PC1 to Chiefs PC1, which is cool. Different domains, but they can communicate with each other. So yeah, test user 69, logging on. So looks like everything worked out. There's a few roadblocks, speed bumps, but we got through it, and we have a fully functioning multiple domain Active Directory forest that we just created from scratch. Pretty cool. And this was part 1. Now in part 2, we're going to create our users and groups, our organizational units, do some PowerShell scripting to make it a little simpler, because we're going to be creating 50, 100 users and stuff like that. So we're going to do that through PowerShell. And then we're going to apply group policies, and I'll try to make the domains different. So like NFL.com, which is the administrative domain, will be very strict. NFCNorth.com will be medium strict, and then AFCWest.com will be less strict and more just free for all, free balling it, just to kind of make things different and experiment with some GPOs. I mean, try to learn that stuff too. That's important in the Active Directory domain environment. Anyway, this was part 1, and hopefully you followed along and were able to complete it.